She gave up everything for books. What the millionaire CEO did next will haunt you forever. It all started one rainy evening in a forgotten corner of the dusty city. An unyielding obsession gripped Eleanor Prescott, a millionaire CEO known for her cold, calculating demeanor in the boardroom. But inside her opulent mansion, hidden behind walls lined with wealth, Eleanor was on a wild hunt for something far more elusive than profit. She craved stories. Books piled high like fortresses around her, their spines whispering secrets. But this wasn't just a sentimental obsession. It transformed her life into a chilling mystery. Strange things began happening when Eleanor decided to abandon her high-stakes career, trading in her tailored suits for the faded covers of novels. Whispers circulated in the halls of her former empire. People were startled to discover the once intimidating figure now getting lost in fictional worlds. It was as if she had stepped through a portal, losing more than just her ambition. Her employees and peers exchanged knowing glances. They were uneasy, sensing a darkness emerging from their former leader's labor of love. Rumors of late-night rituals hummed like electric currents through her neighborhood. Neighbors claimed to hear her muttering to the pages late into the night, almost as if the books were speaking back. Shadows danced in her windows, and her laughter echoed in the silence, wild and unsettling. It was haunting, eerie in a way that made people draw their curtains just a little tighter. Each new book soon demanded something of her, offering glimpses of otherworldly places, yet the more she read, the more lost she became. But what shook everyone to their core was the final straw. Eleanor made a bold declaration. "I'm building a library. A sacred place for every kind of story." Filled with passion, she began demolishing sections of her mansion. Was it madness, or was there something more? The local construction crew, bewildered by her fervor, uncovered a hidden compartment, old, dusty tomes sealed within the walls, fluttering with lavender and secrets. A chill ran down the spines of those who dared glance at them, a feeling that dark forces were lifting the veil. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The clattering of tools mingled unnaturally with the tension hanging in the air. With every book uncovered, Eleanor seemed to darken, her eyes reflecting something more than mere pages. They glimmered with an unsettling hunger. The community watched in disbelief as she transformed from the powerful CEO into a recluse, a specter who walked among them yet was worlds away. Then, amidst the chaos of unearthing the entire literary history that lay hidden in her home, Eleanor vanished just like that. One night, she simply wasn't there. The sounds of her restless nights had ceased, leaving behind an eerie stillness. Her staff rushed to the mansion only to find the library, or what was left of it, in disarray. Pages scattered, lights flickering as if the house itself was alive and afraid. What secrets dwelled on those pages, and what had Eleanor discovered that drove her to commit such extreme acts? The search for her only deepened the mystery, swirling the small town into whispers about the powerful woman who lost herself in the very stories that were meant to set her free. What fate awaited her along with the tales trapped within those walls? The sun clawed its way through the clouds the next morning, illuminating the wreckage left behind in Eleanor's mansion. Building scaffolding crisscrossed the entrance, ropes swinging loosely in the breeze, as the community buzzed with rumors. Whispers morphed into frantic gossip, feeding off each other, growing louder. She went too deep into those books. What else could it be? The townsfolk watched in horror and fascination, their imaginations filling in the gaps where facts fell short. Detective Mark Holloway stood at the threshold, eyeing the chaos with a tight jaw. He had a hard time accepting that the fierce CEO, who used to dominate quarterly earnings meetings, would simply vanish. He stepped carefully over a heap of torn manuscripts, each paper fluttering like a distressed bird. The air inside was thick with the musty aroma of ancient ink, like a warning gently piercing his senses. "Did you find anything?" Mark turned to Jerry, the foreman of the construction crew. Jerry shook his head, his expression clouded with confusion. "Just a hell of a lot of books, and this strange chill in the air, like someone was watching us keep looking," Mark ordered, frustration bubbling in his voice. As he moved deeper, the remnants of Eleanor's life piled high around him, a trophy from her time as a CEO, a picture frame shattered to pieces, reflexing a woman's face who no longer inhabited her own home. Just then, a glimmer caught his eye. It was a small, peculiar object wedged between two fallen books. It looked like a locket, but something about it made his skin prickle. He picked it up, dusting away the debris, revealing intricate engravings depicting a closed book surrounded by swirling mist. He opened it, and to his shock, the locket had an inscription: "What is lost can be found, if one dares to seek." The world outside fell silent. Realization hit him like a freight train. The stories in those books were not just ink and paper, they carried weight, power, and perhaps something darker. Meanwhile, back in town, Hannah, Eleanor's former assistant, rifled through her own memories. She recalled late nights where Eleanor spoke of books as if they were alive, knitting together threads of her mind with a passion that bordered on madness. There was this one phrase she kept repeating over and over. Hannah whispered to herself, heart racing. "Every story has its price." Did she know? Fear gripped Hannah. Without Eleanor, the town felt unmoored, like a ship lost at sea. She wished she had questioned her more. Had she really given up everything for those stories? Or had Eleanor captured something unimaginable? Just then, the power cut out, plunging the office into a twilight haze, flickering shadows dancing across the walls. Hannah's pulse quickened. Someone was in the room with her. She could feel it. She spun around, her eyes locking onto the darkened corner, where an impossible shape seemed to twist and twist like pages caught in the wind. "What do you want?" she shouted, fear surging through her veins. The darkness pulsed, but answered only in sinister silence. Back at the mansion, Mark couldn't shake his gut feeling that he was close. He felt at the pull of the narrative, like an unyielding force calling him deeper into Eleanor's world. But as he turned to leave, the rattling of pages snapped his focus back. It felt as if stories were pleading for release, yet he couldn't help but wonder, was it dangerous to listen? As he took a step back, the hairs on his neck stood on end. A voice, soft and distant, echoed through the chaotic remains, "Find me." What lay behind those fragmented words? What would await him if he dared to explore deeper into the shadows that Eleanor had walked? He clenched his fists, determination coursing through him. The journey to find her was just beginning, but one thing was clear: the stories had awakened something that demanded attention, something waiting to be unleashed. And what if trying to uncover Eleanor's fate would change them all forever? With a chill running down his spine, Mark knew he was no longer just an observer. He was now part of the entangled tales. What other secrets lingered unseen, waiting to engulf anyone who dared to venture forth? Mark's heart raced as the voice reverberated off the shattered walls, echoing in a way that felt almost alive, almost pleading. Find me. Who or what was calling to him? He gripped the locket tightly and scanned the room, his instincts screaming that he was not alone. The stillness of the mansion hung in the air, thick and suffocating. Papers sighed from time to time, giving the impression that they were whispering secrets, just out of his reach. He stepped cautiously, each crunch of debris underfoot a reminder that this place was once a vibrant part of Eleanor's life, but now felt cursed, a vessel of loss. Just then, a book slipped from a precarious stack, its pages splayed open. Mark's breath hitched as he crouched to examine it. It was a journal, its cover worn, with fragile pages yellowed with age. The title, "The Price of Knowledge," sent a chill down his spine. As he turned to the first page, the ink was vivid against the fading paper. For those willing to go beyond the boundaries of reality, knowledge brings its own cost. The weight of her words hung in the air. Had Eleanor paid that price? Did she venture too far into the lore she cherished? He had to know. But just as he began to read more, A sudden sound interrupted him, a low groaning creak overhead that sent adrenaline rushing through him. "Stay focused, Mark," he muttered to himself. Pushing away the creeping sense of dread, he skimmed through the pages. The journal recounted Eleanor's obsession with the origins of storytelling itself, its power to heal, harm, and transform lives. But the deeper he delved into her writings, the more erratic they became. Reflections of her growing paranoia spilled onto the pages. "I am not safe. They are watching." At that moment, a loud crash reverberated from the upper levels of the mansion, shaking loose dust from the beams. Mark's heart pounded. It was too much to ignore. Ignoring the warnings of the journal, he sprinted toward the staircase, each step echoing as he climbed. The air grew colder as he ascended, the shadows stretching impossibly long before him. The walls seemed to close in on him, swallowing him whole. When he reached the second floor, the hallway yawned before him. Dilapidated doors lined the walls, each promising a different revelation. But something about the last room on the right called out to him, a sliver of light seeping through the cracks. He pushed the door open, breath held tight in his chest. Inside, a triangle of sunlight cast eerie shapes on the floor. And at the center, a writing desk stood, its ink pot still full, as if someone had left it mere moments ago. Scattered notes fluttered under the bittersweet warmth of the light, but one particular sheet caught his eye. It was scrawled madly, almost illegibly, but the words resonated. "The stories will reveal the truth unless swallowed by a darker fate." Just as Mark's fingers grazed the paper, a chilling laughter echoed around the room. It was soft at first, dancing through the air like wind teasing the leaves, but it quickly morphed into something sinister, a taunt lingering on the edges of sanity. "Are you sure you want to uncover the truth?" The voice dripped with malice, wrapping around him like chains. Mark stumbled back, heart racing, knowing this was a point of no return. What was waiting for him in the shadows? Had Eleanor truly unlocked something she could not control, and now it was set to claim him too? In that moment, Mark understood his pursuit of Eleanor's truth had ignited forces far beyond what he had imagined. The question now loomed larger than ever: what truth was worth finding, and at what cost? As the darkness crept closer, he turned on his heel, ready to plunge deeper into the chaos, determined to rescue not only Eleanor, but himself from the tightening grip of whatever haunted this mansion. But then a realization struck him: had he truly been called here for answers, or was it to become yet another part of a tale that refused to be told? A shiver ran down his spine as he stepped forward, the door creaking ominously behind him. Would he be brave enough to follow this path, or would he let the stories swallow him whole? The shadows stretched around Mark like hungry tendrils as he tore his eyes from the page. Those words whispered promises and paradoxes that clawed at his mind. He could feel the laughter lingering, creeping in behind him, infecting the air with dread. The once familiar warmth of the sunlight faded, replaced by a biting chill that ignited the hairs on his arms. "What do you want?" he called into the oppressive darkness, fighting the tremble in his voice. The laughter faded, replaced by an unsettling silence that felt alive, pulsing in time with his heartbeat. Every corner of the room held a secret, a story aching to be told, or perhaps a warning blinking like an emergency light. He forced himself to take a step forward, the floorboards creaking in protest. Just beyond the desk, something glimmered in the dim light. Mark squinted, edging closer. It was a small box, ornate yet battered, splattered with age. Perhaps it contained another clue, another piece of the puzzle that could lead him to Eleanor. He hesitated, his gut screaming to turn away, to run back down the stairs before whatever dwelled in these walls found its prey. With a deep breath, he reached out and lifted the lid. The hinges groaned, and the sound felt like a warning. Inside lay a collection of trinkets, a vial filled with a strange, swirling liquid, a weathered key, and a dark pendant shaped like an eye. Each object seemed to pulse with its own energy, as if waiting for him to make a choice. A vision flashed through his mind. Eleanor hunched over, feverishly working, this very box open at her side, the objects imbued with meaning only she could understand. He could almost hear her voice, frantic and desperate. "Mark." The call sent a jolt through him, the name escaping her lips like a spell. It was a plea, or was it a trap? He felt tethered to her, time stretching between them, the threads of fate weaving tighter. He wanted to believe he could save her, that he wasn't too late. Do not be deceived, the voice echoed again, low and sultry, wrapping around him like fog. The stories do indeed reveal the truth, but they demand a sacrifice. What will you give? He gripped the locket tighter, something deep within him shifting like ground beneath a quake. I will find her. He shouted defiantly, frustration lacing his words. But inside, doubt clawed at his mind. Sacrifice? What more could the mansion take from him? He felt as if he were standing at a precipice between reality and something darker, something that could drag him into the deep. In an instinctive movement, Mark snatched the pendant from the box. The moment his fingers curled around it, the room erupted into chaos. Shadows twisted and writhed around him, creeping closer, scraping against the walls with a desperate hunger. He staggered back, clutching the pendant to his chest, a lifebuoy in a raging sea of nightmares. From the swirling darkness, a figure emerged, half-formed and flickering like an old film reel. It was impossible to discern if it was Eleanor or something else altogether. But sharp eyes glimmered with noble pain and an unbearable desperation. Help me, Mark, the figure pleaded, breathless. It knows what you seek. It will not let you go. You must choose. The words hung like a trap, a premonition of the ominous future that awaited him. The box slipped from his grasp, scattering its contents across the floor like so many lost dreams. The laughter came back, lurking just on the edge of his awareness, and he could feel its pressure tightening around him. He had to move. Anguish clawed at his insides, a fierce urgency leading him toward the only path illuminated by the flickers of the unknown. And just as he turned to escape the suffocating room, a scream echoed from somewhere deep within the walls. The sound twisted like a knife, cleaving through the tension, sending horror rushing through him. What price will you pay? It cried, anguish lacing its tone, a cry that seemed very much like Eleanor's. He hesitated at the door. The choice was personal now, and whatever awaited him could change everything. Would he risk it all for the chance to save her? And with that question hanging in the air, Mark took a deep breath, prepared to step into the darkness once more. What lay ahead would redefine his very existence, but he could not turn back now. Could bravery become his salvation or his doom? Mark's heart pounded in his chest as he twisted the doorknob, hesitating at its threshold. The darkness loomed like a living entity, whispering sweet nothings that promised comfort but only delivered dread. With the key gripped tightly in his sweating palm, he steeled himself and threw the door open, stepping into the murkiness that swallowed him whole. The air thickened, heavy with secrets and the scent of something long rotted. Mark stumbled through the hallway, the distant echo of his footsteps swallowed by the mansion's oppressive silence. Shadows flicked and flickered along the walls, pooling in corners like ink spilled from a forgotten pen. Each step felt like a step deeper into a different reality, one that threatened to twist his very essence. Mark, another voice called out, softer this time, gentle yet punctured with urgency. It was unmistakably Eleanor, her tone wrapping around him like a silken thread, drawing him forward. The resonance of her voice sent a shiver up his spine, stirring the desperate hope within him, igniting the flicker of resolve that had been stifled moments before. Eleanor, where are you? He shouted, the sound ripping through the stillness, desperate for a response. The answers were buried in this house, layered beneath the fabric of pain and shadows, but where could he find them? As he pressed on, echoes morphed into whispers, chanting words he couldn't quite catch, but felt in his bones. Was it the house alive and feeding off his fear, or merely the relentless shadows tricking his mind? The pendant around his neck began to heat against his chest, pulsing with a rhythm as if it were alive. Each pulse resonated deeper, calling out through time, calling out for him to understand. Mark reached a vast chamber, the walls adorned with dark tapestries depicting scenes of struggle and sacrifice. In the center stood an ancient pedestal, the surface marred with scratches that hinted at something far more harrowing than dust and neglect. Upon it lay a single book, its cover cracked and weathered, yet something about it felt eerily familiar. Cautiously, he approached. The title gleamed in the dim light, The Cost of Secrets. The words danced before his eyes, pulling him in. Was it telling the story of Eleanor? Could it reveal where she was, why she was lost within these haunted halls? The walls seemed to lean in closer, as if eager to witness his commitment. You must pay a price to uncover the truth. The whisper slithered through the air again. Something cold coiled around his heart. This wasn't merely a choice, but a bargain with the darkness lurking within the very fabric of the mansion. Suddenly, the shadows flared up, swirling with an otherworldly hunger. You are here for her, they taunted, merging into screeches that echoed his innermost fears, feeding off his uncertainty. Stop, Mark pleaded, feeling the weight of the decision press heavily on his shoulders. In that instant, something flashed in his mind, a memory of Eleanor in the library, her laughter filling the air like music, surrounded by the very same tomes that now formed his prison. He could almost hear her saying, "Stories are alive, Mark. They will bind you, break you, but ultimately, they will free you." Before he could second-guess himself, Mark reached out for the book. The moment his fingers brushed against the cover, a wave of energy surged through him, and the room exploded with blinding light. Visions flickered by Eleanor surrounded by darkness, her face twisted in anguish, an ancient ritual. Deep incantations echoing in time, voices of warning circling like vultures over a fate yet decided. Choose, they echoed through the chaos and offering a threat. The world spun with uncertainty, flooding him with knowledge of what he might have to sacrifice to reclaim Eleanor. The shadows shrieked, flaring around him as he clutched the book, every fiber of his being vibrating with fear and determination. He didn't come this far to back away now, did he? Why did everything feel like a terrible game, a gamble for her soul? Just as the light began to dissipate, leaving behind a suffocating darkness, he caught the glimmer of Eleanor's gaze in the depths of the void, a gaze pleading, a gaze that could haunt his very dreams. A split-second decision loomed before him, and he grasped at the tendrils of fate, ready to plunge into the unknown. What sacrifice does love truly demand? And as the shadows contorted toward him, he realized he might have to pay that price sooner than he thought. What awaited him on the other side of the bargain? The blinding light bent and twisted around him, its intensity palpable, pressing against his skin, suffocating him in its brilliance. Mark felt himself spiraling, yanked through time and space, untethered from his reality. Everything unspooled, the walls of the chamber, the book, even the shadows, they faded into a whirlwind of color and sound. In that moment of chaos, Eleanor's face flashed before him, her desperate eyes filled with an emotion that sliced right through him. Fear. Mark. A wail echoed through the vortex. He reached out, but the distance between them widened, each heartbeat stretched like the strangled strings of a guitar. His stomach clenched as the pitch of her voice fractured into 1,000 shards that pierced his mind. Then silence. He landed hard on cold, marble tiles, gasping for air. The warmth of the light withdrew, leaving him shivering in a dim, cavernous space. He was no longer in the mansion, but in a vast, empty hall, grand and forbidding. An overwhelming sense of dread washed over him. Where was he? The air hung thick, tasting of metal, a sharp contrast to the mustiness he had just escaped. A flickering chandelier, long extinguished, dangled overhead like a ghostly specter. Shadows lurked at the edges of his vision, barely visible but ever watchful. A cold breeze slithered through the cracks in the walls, carrying whispers that faded before he could discern their meaning. Each breath felt weighted, as if he were inhaling secrets yet to be told. Eleanor. His voice cracked, reverberating off the walls, swallowed by the oppressive gloom. No answer came, only the murmur of silence that dripped from the vaulted ceiling like a malevolent tide. The pendant pulsed against his chest, thrumming with an urgency that felt both familiar and foreign, as if it were echoing the cadence of a heartbeat, one that didn't belong to him. Mark scanned the room, desperate for a sign of her. His gaze landed on ornate mirrors that flanked the hall, their surfaces dark and reflective, swallowing light instead of reflecting it. They seemed to beckon him, twisting his reflection into something unrecognizable, taunting him with unfulfilled promises. Suddenly, a voice broke through the malevolence, a soft, alluring call. "Mark." He turned sharply, heart racing. It was Eleanor's voice, but now it dripped with an intoxicating sweetness. Confusion washed over him. Was she leading him further into the abyss, or was she pleading for rescue? Every instinct screamed for caution, yet every fiber of his being screamed for connection. "Where are you?" he called, feeling a tremor in his voice. The walls shifted around him, feeding off his fear, pulling him closer to the source of her voice. The room spun until he stood before a massive door, its surface carved with runes that glowed faintly, as though alive.it throbbed with energy, responding to his presence. Mark reached out, pressing his palm against the cool wood, the warmth of the pendant intensifying with each heartbeat. "Eleanor!" he shouted again, and the response was immediate. The door creaked, shuddering as if it were awakening from a long slumber. As the gap widened, a blinding flash buried him once more, visions colliding into his mind, a realm divided by light and shadow, where love clashed with despair. He saw Eleanor, a wraith trapped in the library, pages fluttering like trapped birds around her, torn between reality and fiction. Words floated in front of her, whispering promises of salvation mixed with warnings of treachery. Trembling, he pushed through the doorway, stepping into the unknown, heart racing with the relentless rhythm of hope and terror. What awaited him on the other side? Would he find Eleanor or hell itself? The moment his foot crossed the threshold, darkness descended. Suddenly, he realized the shadows weren't just a backdrop. They were screaming for him to choose, and choose he must. What sacrifice would he need to make to bring her back from the brink? The darkness enveloped Mark like a thick fog, a weight pressing down on him as he fought to regain his bearings. His heart hammered, filling the silence with a loud thump, echoing in his ears. Panic clawed at him. "Eleanor!" he shouted again, desperation rising in him. This time, his voice sounded different, raw, cracking under the strain. Yet, the shadows remained silent, hanging around him like a shroud, thick enough to feel. As his eyes adjusted, shapes emerged from the murk, a labyrinth of towering shelves crammed with books. Dust motes danced lazily in the air, illuminated by faint wisps of light that flickered like candle flames. The smell of ancient paper and ink wafted around him, hitting him with memories. Eleanor had always loved this. She'd often said the scent of old books was magical. He stepped forward, the click of his shoes the only sound. "Eleanor!" The whisper hung in the air. A hint of movement caught his attention, and he turned sharply. At the edge of his vision, he spotted a figure darting between the shelves, a flicker, then gone. "Did you see her?" he asked the silence, his breath shallow as though the air had thickened. The shadows seemed to tighten around him, urging him forward. Mark moved deeper into the library, every instinct on high alert. He reached for the pendant, its warmth a reminder of Eleanor's presence, a beacon flickering in the dimness. He forced himself to breathe evenly, ignoring the prickling unease. The whispers grew louder, twisting his thoughts, seductive and unsettling. "Did you come for me?" they murmured, a cacophony of half-formed sentences that tugged at his resolve. Bitter doubt seeped into his heart. What if this place was not a passage to Eleanor, but a trap designed to ensnare him? Every step felt like wading through syrup, sticky with foreboding. He turned another corner and gasped. The room opened to a grand chamber, illuminated by the soft glow of hovering orbs that floated like will-o'-the-wisps. In the center stood a great table piled high with books, open and turning pages that seemed alive. And there, at the head of the table, sat Eleanor. Mark, her voice rang clear, cutting through the air, rich with longing yet tinged with sadness. She looked different, ethereal, almost beyond reach. Mark's heart raced. "Eleanor, I've found you!" But as he rushed toward her, something gripped his feet. Shadows snatched at his ankles, pulling him back. "No." The shadows curled around his legs like serpents. "She paid your price, now you must choose." "What?" Mark struggled against the weight, casting frantic glances around the chamber. He could see her now, shimmering, her eyes pleading, desperately holding back tears. You must decide if you will take her place. The shadows twisted as they spoke, a mixture of voices overlapping in a dissonant melody. Her freedom for yours. I can't sacrifice, Mark. It's what this world demands. His chest tightened. The weight of the pendant grew heavier, pulsing with urgency, radiating Eleanor's love. Would he really be forced to trade her existence for his own? Mark. Eleanor's voice broke through his despair. You have to fight this. But the shadows undulated, encircling him, wrapping tighter, suffocating the hope that fought to rise within. I want to abandon you, he yelled, heart pounding as doubts and fears raged inside him. Could he really give up everything for her? Could he sacrifice himself to save the woman he loved? His vision blurred, chaos reigned within as Mark wrestled with the choice looming over him. The darkness deepened, but within it, a glimmer of determination sparked, and then, the shadows stirred violently, a roar building around him. A choice was coming, one that would define everything. In that moment of swirling dread, a thought struck him, a process more diabolical than he had imagined. What if he was never meant to save her? The racing thoughts sent him reeling. Truth and deception twisted, blurring the lines. What if everything he believed was a trap? It all hinged on a decision, one that would rip at the very fabric of who he was. Mark. Eleanor's voice drew him back. Choose wisely. But what if the truth meant losing her forever? Mark's heart raced as the weight of the shadows squeezed tighter. His breath felt shallow, panic clawing at his throat. In that grand chamber, Eleanor's shimmering figure sat as if on a throne of sorrow, a vision so close yet impossibly far. Mark. Her eyes, pools of longing, seemed to pierce through the darkness. Yet with every heartbeat, the shadows whispered louder, their voices wrapping around him like cold chains. Sacrifice, your choice, her freedom. The weight of their words crashed over him like a tidal wave, threatening to drag him under. He blinked, trying to clear his thoughts. But I can't. I won T. Eleanor, what did you do? Eleanor's face twisted in anguish. I did what I had to. I thought the knowledge in these books could save me, save us. The words hit him like a punch. All those years of her losing herself in stories, what if this was the price? These books, it's all tied to this? He struggled against the shadows, fear consuming him. Yes, Eleanor shouted, her voice raw. The heart of this library holds more than just stories. It's a prison, a place of trade. I became a part of it, and now it demands a balance. Mark felt nauseated. The walls, lined with countless volumes, loomed over him like sentinels of despair. Each book stood as a reminder of their shared passion, their love wrapped in tales of heroism and adventure. It was never just reading for you, was it? It was an escape. You don't understand. Eleanor sobbed. For every tale I read, I gave a piece of my soul. I thought it was harmless, that I could hold on to my essence. But it consumed me. The realization struck him, her sacrifice on the altar of curiosity, and now he was left to pay the toll. I want to forget you. I refuse. Mark shouted back, dragging his strength together. No, Mark. Don't fight it. Her voice trembled, pleading. You're stronger than they want you to believe. You can still break free. A surge of hope ignited within him. If this library was a trap, perhaps it could also be undone. Mark clenched his fists around the pendant, feeling Eleanor's warmth bleed through. I refuse to choose between us. I'll find a way to save you both. The shadows recoiled, hissing with anger, their grip loosening momentarily. You cannot break the cycle. The library feeds on your doubts, your fears. Once you step into its grasp, it's never truly over. But within that doubt, he found clarity. Even the strongest chains can be shattered. He spat back, inching towards Eleanor, refusing to be pulled back. Suddenly, a deafening roar erupted from the depths of the library, shaking the very walls. The flickering orbs above flickered dangerously, plunging the chamber into an eerie half-light. Mark. You must. Eleanor's words faded as a portal began to crack open at the far side of the chamber, a swirl of darkness beckoning him. Come with me, Eleanor. We can face this together. No. The intensity in her eyes flickered like the failing lights. The portal isn't safe. It's a gamble, a chaos that can twist everything you love into something dark. Mark hesitated, a storm of questions swirling in his mind. Could he really step into the unknown with Eleanor? Would he risk everything to reach her? Whispers grew to a crescendo, each twisted voice crying out for him to choose, to surrender. And then, as though the library could sense his indecision, the shadows lunged forward, a tidal wave of darkness. Mark gritted his teeth, strength surging from the pendant. I'll find you, Eleanor. No matter the cost. He leapt toward the portal just as the shadows enveloped him. The world spun, blurring around him until the chamber vanished. The screaming voices faded. But he wasn't alone anymore. A flicker of warmth pushed forward through the gloom, guiding him as the unknown engulfed him. Then darkness swallowed him whole, a chilling silence that whispered of choices still to be made. What awaited him on the other side? A world born from the choices yet to come. Would he emerge as a beacon of hope or a shadow of despair? The rush of vertigo faded into a calm as Mark tumbled through the portal, body plunging into something thick and heavy. The darkness swallowed him whole. Time felt distorted. Minutes could have passed, or mere seconds. Finally, with a harsh gasp, he emerged into an entirely new world. Mark stumbled forward, legs shaking. He found himself in a dimly lit corridor lined with ancient bookshelves that resembled the twisted, skeletal hands of the damned. The air was heavier here, laden with a musty reminder of forgotten tales long gone. The faint scent of mold and decay filled his nostrils, a stark contrast to Eleanor's memory, her laughter and warmth. What is this place? He murmured, taking cautious steps deeper into the corridor. It felt oppressive. The walls seemed to close in. The whispers were gone, but their echoes lingered, wrapping him in uncertainty. Just ahead, a faint flicker of light caught his eye. A small, candlelit table stood alone. Curiosity pulled him closer. On the table rested a single book, ornate, its cover embossed with symbols he couldn't comprehend. A sense of foreboding crept in. Should he open it? No. He whispered to himself, recalling Eleanor's warnings. This is all part of the trap. But the book seemed to pulse with energy, pulling him in with an almost magnetic force. It's like it sensed his trepidation, challenging him to confront the darkness. Mark reached out, fingertips grazing the leather cover. The moment he touched it, a shockwave of visions flooded his mind, scenes of Eleanor entwined with narratives both beautiful and terrifying. He saw her laugh, then scream, then disappear into shadows. Eleanor! He gasped, jerking his hand back. Suddenly, the shadows returned, slithering along the ground, gathering density. Mark's heart thundered in his chest. He could feel their anger, their hunger. You should not have come here, child, a voice echoed, deep and resonant, rising from the depths of shadow. The figure began to coalesce from the darkness, an apparition draped in tattered robes, their face obscured. Who are you? Mark demanded, trying to sound brave even as fear creeped along his spine. I am the keeper of silent tales, the shadowy presence intoned. Many have sought what you seek, yet few possess the courage to face the price. What price? Mark pressed, recovering some of his confidence. To walk these halls, to seek your love, requires the answering of sacrifices that echo through your heart. The cycle must continue, and I am the equation. Mark's breath hitched. No, I won't sacrifice anything. I'll find Eleanor without making choices that hurt. The keeper emitted a low, hollow laugh, sending an icy chill through Mark. You already have, my boy. You chose to step into the abyss. Sacrifice is what brought you here. The books are alive with your fears. They feed and grow. Mark's despair threatened to breach the surface. No, it can't end like this. The keeper stepped closer, revealing a skeletal, hollow face, shimmering where eyes should have been. To save her, you must lose a part of yourself. Every choice breeds consequences. Are you willing to lose what you love most? In that moment, Mark felt the weight of Eleanor's love, the warmth of her spirit. He couldn't let despair take root. There has to be another way. The shadows twisted, dark eyes gleaming with malice. Defiance will lead to your end, Mark. The library feasts on desperation, and soon you will choose or be chosen. Just as he thought all hope was lost, a glint caught his eye, the pendant, glowing with feverish intensity around his neck. Its light pulsed, pushing back the darkness. He grasped it tightly, focusing on Eleanor's warmth, their shared stories, the spark of their love igniting within him. "You can't take her from me," he shouted defiantly. The keeper recoiled, shadows hissing in fury. "Beware, Mark. The price shall be paid. Are you truly prepared for what comes next?" A crack reverberated through the air as the ground beneath him trembled. Above, the flickering candles died, plunging the room into impenetrable darkness. "MRK. A." Distant, echoing cry pierced through the blackness. It was Eleanor. His heart skipped a beat. The library was alive, and it wanted a choice, but would that choice tear them apart forever? And would Mark dare to make that sacrifice to stop the cycle or succumb to the very darkness that sought to claim him? The shadows closed in tight, swirling menacingly as Mark gripped the pendant, feeling the warmth surge from it like a heartbeat. He could hear Eleanor's voice echoing in his mind, laced with both love and desperation. Time seemed to stand still as he pondered the keeper's words. He had come too far. He wouldn't let darkness take her without a fight. "Eleanor," he breathed softly, picturing the way her laughter lit up a room, the depth in her gaze when she spoke to him about stories. Each moment they had shared pushed back against the encroaching dread. The keeper shifted, its form flickering like a flame in the wind, its voice dripping with mockery. "Your resolve is commendable but misplaced. You are here by choice, Mark, and choices have consequences. I'm here to save Eleanor," he shouted defiantly, his pulse thrumming with energy. Not just to face consequences, but to change them. The keeper paused, shadows momentarily retreating, revealing an opening behind its figure, a portal flickering in and out of existence, glimmers of light beyond its threshold. "To save her, you must confront your fears. What will you sacrifice?" Mark clenched his fists. "I won't sacrifice anything without knowing the price I'll pay." "Very well," the keeper hissed, the words dripping with menace. "But know this, every choice leads to something lost. Stand firm, but be prepared for your journey to breach both past and future." The darkness swirled violently, and once more Mark felt the shadows tugging at him. He stepped towards the portal, feeling the pull of destiny. "Show me." Light exploded around him, pulling him through the portal and into a vibrant scene that took his breath away. He stood in their old bookshop, the one Eleanor had always dreamed of. Everything glimmered with vibrant color, warmed by sunlight filtering through dusty windows. He could feel the energy of each book lined on shelves, the stories alive in a new way. But something was wrong. Eleanor was behind the counter, lost in pages, an ethereal light encasing her. Yet her eyes were vacant, empty of the spark he loved. "Eleanor." He rushed toward her, but invisible chains halted him. The keeper's voice resonated, deep and cruel. "What will you do to reclaim her spirit? What will you lose?" "Anything," Mark shouted, straining against the unseen restraints. "I'd give everything. Just tell me." Eleanor's expression flickered like flames, pain mixed with confusion. "Mark?" she whispered, a glimmer of recognition sparking in her eyes. "Is that you?" "Eleanor." Tears surged, and he struggled against the chains, desperate to reach her. "Remember, Mark," the keeper said, voice booming all around. "You may get her back, but you must pay the cost. Love is both a gift and a curse. Will you pay with your essence, your memories, or perhaps your very soul?" "No," Mark cried out, feeling panic rise. "I won't let you take her from me." "You will decide," the keeper pressed, shadows twisting around it in a whirlwind of darkness, "or be eternally consumed by the choices you evade." As the shadows pulsated ominously, Mark took a breath, forcing himself to focus. He could feel that, even underneath the chains, love filled him like a beacon, guiding him. "Eleanor," he pleaded again, desperation clawing at his insides. In a heartbeat, he realized the hidden truth. Each book they had cherished, Every shared story became his guiding light. "I will not choose between us," he shouted against the mounting shadows. "We both deserve to be free. I embrace our stories. They are the essence of who we are." Suddenly a brilliance flared throughout the space. An unseen force built between him and Eleanor, a connection forged from their shared tales, pain and joy. The moment blossomed as words tumbled from both of their lips, stories intertwined like lifelines. "Never be afraid to embrace the truth," Eleanor exclaimed, her presence solidifying before him. When their voices merged, the shadows shrieked, retreating as light filled the room, illuminating the darkness, pushing against the Keeper's presence. Light swirled around them, a gale of hope, dissipating the fear, banishing chains threatening to bind him. "I choose love," Mark declared, his voice unwavering. "I choose our stories over shadows." In that instant, Mark felt something snap, an invisible bond ruptured, and chains disintegrated around him into a cloud of dust. Eleanor's eyes ignited, vibrant with life. "Mark," she called, a radiant smile breaking across her face. As they surged toward each other, the room exploded in light. The Keeper contorted in anger, shadows dispersing in the blaze of their combined will. "You dare defy the cycle," it howled, but the words were lost in a shockwave as the energy jolted around them. The essence of their love and words seeped into the world, blending joy and anguish as it filled the library beyond, each story vibrating alive with possibility. "You will pay a price," it shouted one last time, but Mark's heart swelled, unfazed as the light enveloped them. As the remnants of darkness vanished, Mark pulled Eleanor into his arms. "We broke it," he whispered, tears mingling with laughter. "We chose each other." "We chose us," Eleanor agreed, her eyes bright with hope. They stood together, facing the echoes of tales that still lingered, knowing they had faced shadows and clawed their way back into the light. The library, reborn, surrounded them with familiar charm, the promise of adventure framed not by darkness, but by the brilliance of stories willing to breathe with them. The cycle would not claim them. Instead, they took hold of their narrative anew, authoring a future steeped in love and entwined stories, undeterred by the whispers that would haunt others for eternity. As they walked hand in hand through the library's vast halls, their journey was just beginning, but this time, they carried each other's hearts as sturdy shields against whatever would come next. And just as they stepped into the warmth of the light, a final thought lingered in the air. What part of their story would they write next? So the final page turned, but the story continues. Before we part ways, let me urge you to take action. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss out on more exclusive stories that will grip your heart. Smash that like button, let's feed the algorithm, and keep this community thriving. Flood the comments below with all your reactions and theories about how this wild adventure unfolded. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this thrilling conclusion. Your support shapes our journey together.